The alarm systems across Earth Defense Command headquarters started screaming at 3 in the morning. Commander Jake Morrison jumped out of his bed and ran to the control room. He had been expecting something like this for months, but not this soon. The massive screen showed something that made his blood run cold. 300 alien ships had just appeared at the edge of the solar system. They were arranged in a perfect formation, moving slowly toward Earth like a wall of death. Jake grabbed his communicator and called Admiral Lisa Grant. She answered immediately, already awake and watching the same data from her office. "They're here," Jake said simply. "Get everyone to the command center. We have maybe 6 hours before they reach Mars," Lisa replied. Within 20 minutes, every senior officer in Earth's military was gathered in the underground facility. The room buzzed with urgent conversations as people tried to understand what they were facing. Captain Greg Palmer was the first to speak up. "We're getting a transmission from them. Should I put it on the main screen?" Lisa nodded. The screen flickered and showed an alien face. The creature had 4 eyes, gray skin, and a mouthful of sharp teeth. It spoke in a harsh, clicking language, but the computer quickly translated the words. "Humans of Earth, I am Commander Krathzor of the Zaldrian Empire. You have 7 days to surrender your planet and join our empire. If you refuse, we will destroy every city, every settlement, and every ship you have. You cannot win. We have conquered 47 star systems. You are just one small planet. Submit now or die." The transmission ended. The room fell silent for a moment. Then someone laughed. It was Lieutenant Amy Carter, a young officer who had grown up in the rough neighborhoods of Detroit. "Did he just threaten us?" she asked, still chuckling. "Does he have any idea what kind of planet he just threatened?" Jake understood her reaction. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and countless disasters. Earth itself was a death trap with hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, and predators that had shaped humanity into survivors. "Send them a response," Lisa ordered. "Let's see if we can avoid bloodshed." Captain Susan Blake, the communications officer, prepared the message. Jake stood in front of the camera and spoke clearly. "Commander Krathzor, this is Commander Jake Morrison of Earth Defense Coalition. We have received your ultimatum. Before you proceed, we must warn you. Earth is what we call a death world. Our gravity is twice what you're probably used to. Our atmosphere would be toxic to most species. Our diseases have killed billions of our own people. We evolved fighting predators that could tear us apart. We have been at war with each other and with our own planet for our entire existence. This has made us very, very good at fighting. Please reconsider your attack. Leave our system in peace and we will let you go unharmed. This is your only warning." The message was sent. Jake watched the clock, waiting for a response. It came 30 minutes later. Krathzor appeared on the screen again, and this time he was laughing. "Death world? Predators? You think your little planet's history frightens the Zaldrian Empire? We have heard such desperate lies before. Every species we conquer tries to sound dangerous at the end. It never matters. You have 7 days." The screen went dark again. Lisa looked around the room at her officers. "Well, we tried. Now we show them why they should have listened. Greg, what's the status of our defense grid?" Greg pulled up a tactical map showing Earth's orbital defenses, the Mars stations, and the scattered fleet of human warships. "We have 62 combat-ready ships. Another 30 are still in construction. Our minefields are active around Earth and Mars. The railgun platforms on the moon are online. 62 ships against 300, someone muttered. "Those aren't good odds." "They would be if we were facing humans," Jake said. "But we're not. We're facing aliens who have never lost a battle. They're overconfident. They think they know how this will go. That's their weakness." Colonel Ryan Webb, who commanded the Marine Forces, stood up. "What's the plan, sir?" Jake walked to the tactical display and started marking positions. "The Zaldrians always attack the same way. We captured their battle recordings from the species they conquered. They come in strong, in formation, using their numerical advantage. They expect their enemies to either run or face them head-on. We're going to do neither." He pointed to the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. "We're going to hide. We'll use the asteroids for cover, power down our ships to minimum levels. They won't be able to detect us. Then we'll mine every approach vector to Earth. When they come through, we hit the mines first. While they're confused and damaged, we attack from multiple directions. Fast strikes, then we disappear again. We'll bleed them until they break." "Guerrilla warfare in space," Amy said with a grin. They're expecting a conventional battle. We're going to give them a nightmare. Lisa approved the plan. We have 6 days to get everything in position. Greg, get our ships hidden in the belt. Ryan, I want your Marines ready for boarding actions. If we can capture some of their ships intact, we'll learn even more about them. Amy, coordinate the fighter wings. Susan, make sure every mine is armed and ready. The room emptied as everyone rushed to their assignments. Jake stayed behind with Lisa, looking at the display of enemy ships creeping closer. Do you think they'll really attack? Lisa asked quietly. Even after our warning? Yes, Jake said. They're predators. They've never met anyone who could hurt them. They probably think we're bluffing. In 7 days, they're going to learn that Earth doesn't produce prey animals. We're the predators on our world, and we're about to teach them that lesson in blood. The next 6 days were a blur of activity. Ships moved into position. Mines were deployed. Marines trained for zero-gravity combat. Every human in the solar system prepared for the battle that would decide whether humanity would survive or become another conquered species in the Zaldrian Empire. On the 7th day, the alien fleet crossed into Earth's territory. Their ships lit up with weapons powering on. They were ready to destroy anything that stood in their way. What they didn't know was that humanity was ready too. And unlike every other species the Zaldrians had faced, humans knew how to fight dirty, how to survive against impossible odds, and most importantly, how to make their enemies regret every mistake. The countdown to battle had begun. The Zaldrian fleet moved through space like a hammer ready to crush an insect. Commander Krathzor sat in his command chair, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his screens. In a few hours, the humans would see his fleet and panic. Then they would beg for mercy. It always happened the same way. Sir, we're detecting some unusual readings from the asteroid belt, one of his officers reported. Krathzor barely looked up. Probably their ships trying to hide. Ignore them. They're no threat. Maintain formation and proceed to Earth. The officer hesitated. Sir, there are also some strange objects floating in our path. Small ones. Should we investigate? No. They're probably just debris or ancient satellites. These humans are primitive. They barely have spaceflight. Focus on the planet. Deep in the asteroid belt, Lieutenant Amy Carter sat in her cockpit, listening to the Zaldrian communications that her ship was intercepting. She smiled when she heard them dismiss the mines as debris. They have no idea what's coming, she said to her wingman. Command, this is Shadow Wing. Enemy fleet has entered the minefield. They're not taking any evasive action. Jake Morrison's voice came through her headset. Understood, Shadow Wing. Hold position. Wait for my signal. Amy watched her scanner. The Zaldrian ships were pushing forward, their shields up but configured for energy weapons. The mines drifted closer and closer. Just a little more, all units. Jake's voice was calm and cold. Execute. The asteroid belt exploded with light. Thousands of mines detonated at once, each one sending shrapnel tearing through space at incredible speeds. The Zaldrian shields, designed to deflect laser fire and plasma bolts, did nothing against simple chunks of metal moving at thousands of meters per second. Dozens of alien ships burst apart. Others lost power as the shrapnel tore through their hulls. The perfect formation dissolved into chaos as ships tried to avoid the explosions and crashed into each other. Now, Greg Palmer shouted from his command ship. All units, attack pattern Delta. The human fleet appeared from behind asteroids, from dark corners of space, from positions the Zaldrians hadn't even thought to check. 62 ships against 250 that were still functional. But the humans had surprise and momentum. Amy kicked her fighter into full burn, racing toward the enemy at speeds that would have killed a Zaldrian pilot. The G-forces pressed her into her seat, but she had trained for this. Every human pilot had. They came from a high-gravity world. Their bodies could take punishment that would turn alien pilots into paste. Her weapons locked onto a Zaldrian cruiser that was spinning out of control from the mine damage. She fired her missiles and banked hard, already looking for the next target. Behind her, the cruiser exploded into pieces. Shadow Wing, break by pairs and engage the destroyers, she commanded. Her squadron split up, each pair of fighters targeting different enemy ships. On the Zaldrian flagship, Krathzor was screaming orders. Return fire! Get those formations back together. Where did they come from? His tactical officer's hands were shaking. Sir, they're everywhere. They're not fighting like any enemy we've faced. They hit us and disappear before we can target them, then follow them. Chase them down. Sir, if we break formation, we'll be vulnerable to more attacks. We're already vulnerable. Do something! But there was nothing to do. The human tactics were unlike anything in Zaldrian military doctrine. The aliens were trained to fight in formation, to use their numbers to overwhelm enemies. The humans refused to stand still long enough to be targeted. Captain Greg Palmer commanded his heavy cruiser as it emerged from behind a small moon. His ship's railguns opened fire, sending solid slugs of metal at relativistic speeds into a Zaldrian battleship. The alien vessel's shields flickered and died. The next volley tore through its hull. Target destroyed. "Weapons, find me another one," Greg ordered. His crew worked with practiced efficiency. They had run this scenario 100 times in simulations. Now it was real and they were winning. Colonel Ryan Webb watched the battle from his assault transport. "There," he pointed at a crippled Zaldrian carrier. "That one's perfect. It's damaged but mostly intact. Take us in." His pilot, a crazy woman named Helen Price who had learned to fly in Earth's worst storms, grinned. "Hold on to something, Colonel. This is going to be rough." The transport dove through the battle, dodging fire from both sides. Helen flew like she was surfing a hurricane, using every trick she knew. They slammed into the Zaldrian carrier's docking bay hard enough to crack the transport's nose cone. "Marines, go, go, go," Ryan shouted. His troops poured out of the transport, weapons ready. The Zaldrians inside the carrier were scrambling to defend their ship, but they were slower, weaker, and completely unprepared for human aggression. Ryan's Marines moved through the corridors like a pack of wolves. They had trained in environments that would kill most species. The low oxygen and high heat inside the damaged carrier barely slowed them down. The Zaldrians, on the other hand, were struggling to breathe and move in their heavy armor. "Secure the bridge," Ryan ordered. "I want their command crew alive if possible. We need intelligence." The fight for the carrier took 15 minutes. When it was over, Ryan had captured 30 Zaldrian officers and seized their computer systems. It was a treasure trove of information about the enemy empire. Back in the main battle, Krathzor finally understood that he was losing. Impossible. Unthinkable. But true. These humans, these primitives from one small planet, were tearing his fleet apart. "All ships retreat," he ordered. "Emergency jump to hyperspace." "Sir, we can't. Our jump drives need time to charge, and the humans keep hitting us before we can escape." Krathzor felt fear for the first time in his long military career. "Then fight. Fight them." But fighting was exactly what the humans wanted. Every time a Zaldrian ship tried to stand and trade fire, it died. The human ships were smaller, faster, and crewed by warriors who had evolved to survive in conditions that would kill any Zaldrian. Jake Morrison watched the battle unfold from his command center. The tactical display showed the Zaldrian fleet falling apart ship by ship, but he couldn't let any of them escape. "All units, pursue any ship that tries to run. We can't let them report back to their empire. Not one ship gets away." It was a harsh order, but necessary. If the Zaldrians learned about humanity's capabilities, they would come back with overwhelming force. Better to make this fleet disappear completely. Let the mystery buy Earth some time. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, not a single Zaldrian ship had escaped. The silence after the battle was strange. Space was full of debris, floating pieces of destroyed ships, and the occasional flicker of explosions as damaged reactors finally gave up. The human fleet regrouped near Mars, counting their losses. Jake Morrison reviewed the damage reports with a heavy heart. They had won, but victory had a cost. 7 ships destroyed, 15 heavily damaged, 432 crew members dead, another 600 wounded. "We hurt them badly, but they hurt us too," Lisa Grant said quietly. She stood beside Jake, looking at the names of the fallen scrolling across her screen. "Every one of them died protecting Earth," Jake replied. "They won't be forgotten." Greg Palmer's ship docked with the command station. He looked exhausted but satisfied as he walked into the briefing room. "We captured 3 Zaldrian vessels intact and have about 200 prisoners. Colonel Webb's Marines are securing them now." "Good. We need to learn everything we can about their empire. Where they come from, how strong they are, what their plans were," Jake said. Amy Carter arrived next, still in her flight suit. The fighter wings are standing down. "We lost 12 pilots. The rest are pretty shaken up but ready to go again if needed." "They won't be needed today," Lisa assured her. "You all did incredibly well. Rest now. We'll debrief everyone tomorrow." Over the next 3 days, human intelligence officers worked around the clock interrogating the Zaldrian prisoners and examining the captured ships. What they learned was both encouraging and terrifying. Lieutenant Karen Foster, who had been assigned to lead the intelligence analysis, presented her findings to the command staff. The Zaldrian Empire controls 47 star systems and has a population of about 70 billion across all their worlds. Their military doctrine is based on overwhelming force and intimidation. They've never lost a major battle because every species they've encountered surrendered quickly or was destroyed easily. What about their homeworld? Jake asked. It's called Zaldros Prime, located about 60 light-years from here. The interesting thing is that it's a garden world. Low gravity, stable climate, few natural predators. The Zaldrians evolved as herd animals, not predators. They survive through numbers and coordination, not individual combat ability. Greg laughed bitterly. No wonder they were so confident. They've never fought anyone like us before, Karen continued. The prisoners are terrified. They can't understand how we move so fast, hit so hard, or survive in conditions that they find barely tolerable. One of them called us demons from a nightmare world. That's actually pretty accurate, Amy muttered. Here's the concerning part, Karen said, her expression darkening. This fleet was just a standard subjugation force. Not their best ships, not their most experienced commanders. Just a routine invasion fleet. If they send their real military power, we could be facing thousands of ships. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed that information. They had barely survived 300 ships. How could they face thousands? Lisa spoke first. Then we can't wait for them to organize a response. We need to hit them first, hit them hard, and make them think twice about coming back. You're suggesting we invade their space? Someone asked incredulously. Not invade. Strike. Fast, brutal, and strategic. We show them that threatening Earth has consequences. We make them afraid of us. Jake stood up and walked to the star map displayed on the wall. Commander Paul Griffin, you've been quiet. What do you think? Paul was a veteran of the Mars colony wars, a tough man who had seen plenty of combat. I think the Admiral is right. Defense is good, but it's not enough. We need to take the fight to them. Show them that we're not prey. It's risky, Greg warned. We'll be far from home, operating in unknown territory. Everything about this situation is risky, Jake countered. But sitting here waiting for the next attack is the riskiest option of all. At least if we attack, we control the timing and the battlefield. The debate lasted for hours, but eventually everyone agreed. Humanity would launch its first interstellar offensive. 50 ships were selected for the strike force. The best vessels, the most experienced crews, and enough firepower to take on whatever they found. Commander Paul Griffin was given overall command, with Captain Helen Price as his second in command. The preparations took 2 weeks. Ships were repaired and resupplied. Crews trained together, learning new tactics based on what had worked against the Zaldrians. Intelligence officers studied the captured data, looking for the best target. This one, Karen said, pointing to a star system on the map. Zeth Prime. It's a mining colony, lightly defended but strategically important. They ship resources from there to their industrial worlds. If we take it out, we hurt their war production. Plus, it's close enough that we can get there and back before they realize what happened. How many defenders? Paul asked. About 40 ships, mostly light cruisers and patrol craft. Nothing like the fleet they sent to Earth. We can handle that. Prepare the route. We leave in 3 days. As the strike force prepared to depart, Jake called Paul to his office for a private conversation. This mission is about more than just destroying a colony, Jake said. We need to send a message. The Zaldrians think we're weak because we're from one small planet. We need to show them that being from a death world makes us stronger, not weaker. I understand, sir. There's something else. The prisoners tell us that the Zaldrian Empire rules through fear. Their conquered species hate them, but are too scared to rebel. If we show that the Zaldrians can be beaten, we might inspire others to rise up. That could be even more valuable than any military victory. Paul nodded slowly. You want me to broadcast our attack? Let everyone in their empire see what happens when they threaten humanity. Exactly. Make it loud. Make it clear. Make them remember. 3 days later, the human strike force jumped to hyperspace, heading into enemy territory. Every crew member knew they might not come back, but they also knew that doing nothing would guarantee Earth's destruction eventually. Better to die fighting than to wait for death to Commander Paul Griffin sat in his command chair as the stars blurred around his ship. In a few weeks, the Zaldrian Empire would learn that they had made the biggest mistake of their existence. They had ignored humanity's warning. Now they would face the consequences. His communications officer, Lieutenant Kevin Brooks, looked nervous. "Sir, we're committed now." "No turning back," Paul smiled grimly. There was no turning back the moment those aliens entered our solar system. Now we're just making sure they regret it. The journey to Zeth Prime had begun. Part 4, the journey through hyperspace, took 18 days. During that time, the crew of the strike force trained constantly. Running simulation after simulation, they practiced boarding actions, ship-to-ship combat, and emergency procedures until everyone could perform their duties perfectly. Commander Paul Griffin spent his time studying everything they knew about the Zaldrian military. The more he learned, the more confident he became. The aliens had never adapted their tactics because they had never needed to. Every battle they fought followed the same pattern. That predictability was going to be their downfall. Captain Helen Price proved to be an excellent second in command. She kept the crew's spirits up with her dark humor and fearless attitude. When some of the younger officers expressed worry about being so far from home, she would just laugh. "Look at it this way," she told them. "We're about to do something no human has ever done before. We're going to punch an empire in the face and make them cry. Our grandkids are going to tell stories about this." Finally, the fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zeth Prime system. Immediately, sensors lit up with contacts. The Zaldrian Defense Force was exactly where intelligence had predicted. 42 ships, Lieutenant Kevin Brooks reported. They're in standard defensive formation around the mining colony. "Have they detected us yet?" Paul asked. "Not yet. We came in on the system's dark side, just like planned." Paul allowed himself a small smile. "Good. Maintain radio silence. All ships begin approach. Weapons free when we reach firing range." The human fleet moved silently through space using the system's asteroid field and a small moon for cover. The Zaldrians had sensors, but they weren't expecting an attack. Why would they? No one had ever dared strike at the Empire before. The colony itself was built on a rocky planet with a thin atmosphere. Massive mining operations covered the surface, pulling valuable minerals from deep underground. Hundreds of thousands of Zaldrians lived and worked there, completely unaware that death was approaching. When the human fleet was 10,000 kilometers from the Zaldrian defenders, Paul gave the order, "All ships attack." 50 human warships suddenly accelerated to combat speed, weapons blazing. The Zaldrians barely had time to react before the first wave of missiles hit their outer ships. The defending aliens tried to organize a response, but they were facing an enemy they didn't understand. Human ships didn't follow predictable patterns. They didn't line up and trade fire. They struck from multiple angles at once, moving in ways that seemed impossible. Helen Price led a squadron of destroyers straight through the Zaldrian formation, her ships weaving between enemy vessels and launching missiles at point-blank range. 3 alien cruisers exploded in quick succession. "Come on, you slow bastards." Helen laughed over the comm. "Try to keep up." The Zaldrian commander tried to pull his ships into a defensive formation, but Paul had anticipated that. As soon as the aliens started grouping up, he sent in his heavy ships with their railguns. Solid slugs of metal traveling at incredible speeds smashed through shields and armor. The Zaldrians had never faced kinetic weapons like this. Their defensive systems were designed for energy weapons and missiles, not simple chunks of metal moving at relativistic speeds. Within 30 minutes, half the Zaldrian defense force was destroyed or crippled. The rest tried to retreat toward the colony, hoping to use the orbital facilities as cover. "Don't let them reach the colony," Paul ordered. "I don't want civilian casualties if we can avoid them." His fleet split into 3 groups, surrounding the fleeing Zaldrians and cutting off their escape routes. It was a massacre. The alien defenders fought bravely, but they were outmatched in every way that mattered. When the last Zaldrian warship exploded, Paul opened a communication channel to the colony below. "This is Commander Paul Griffin of the Earth Defense Coalition. Your defense fleet has been destroyed. We have no desire to harm civilians, but we will if forced to. Order your people to remain calm and await further instructions." The response came quickly, the colony's governor sounding terrified. "Please don't destroy the colony. We have families here, children. We'll cooperate. Just don't kill us." Paul felt a moment of pity. These weren't warriors. They were just people trying to live their lives, caught up in their empire's mistakes. We're not here to murder civilians, Paul said firmly. But your empire attacked Earth without provocation. They ignored our warnings. Now there are consequences. He switched to a broader channel, one that would broadcast across all Zaldrian frequencies in the region. This message is for the Zaldrian Empire. You sent a fleet to conquer Earth. That fleet is gone, every ship destroyed. Now we have come to your territory. This colony is just the beginning. Every day that your empire continues to threaten humanity, we will destroy another of your systems. You cannot hide from us. You cannot defeat us. We are humanity, children of a death world, and we will not be conquered. He paused, letting the words sink in. You have one choice, peace. Withdraw your forces, release your conquered species, and leave humanity alone. Do this and we will stop our attacks. Refuse and we will tear your empire apart piece by piece. You have 7 days to respond. The message was over. Paul ordered his fleet to take up positions around the colony, maintaining a blockade but not attacking. Lieutenant Karen Foster, who had joined the strike force as the intelligence officer, approached Paul's command chair. Sir, we're receiving thousands of transmissions from all over the Zaldrian Empire. The message is spreading. What are they saying? Some are calling for war. Others are panicking. A few of the conquered species are celebrating, saying that someone finally stood up to the Empire. She smiled slightly. We've definitely gotten their attention. Over the next 3 days, human forces occupied key positions around Zeth Prime. Marine units landed on the surface to secure the mining facilities and ensure no one tried to sabotage the equipment. The Zaldrian workers and their families were treated firmly but fairly. Colonel Ryan Webb's Marines had clear orders. No abuse, no theft, no unnecessary violence. They were representing humanity to the galaxy, and they needed to show that humans could be both powerful and merciful. One incident made this clear. A Zaldrian worker, driven by fear and desperation, tried to attack a Marine patrol with a mining tool. The Marines easily disarmed him without killing him. When other Zaldrians rushed forward expecting to see him executed, they were shocked when the Marines simply arrested him and provided medical care for his minor injuries. We're not like your empire, Sergeant Lisa Morgan told the gathered crowd of Zaldrian civilians. We don't kill people for being afraid or making mistakes, but we also won't let anyone hurt us. Stay calm, follow the rules, and everyone will be fine. Word of this treatment spread quickly among the colony. The civilians began to relax, realizing that the humans weren't planning a massacre. Some even started cooperating, providing information about the Empire's military movements. On the 7th day, a Zaldrian diplomatic ship arrived under a white flag. Ambassador Velmora, a high-ranking official of the Empire, requested permission to come aboard the human flagship. Paul granted the request, but took precautions. The ambassador was searched for weapons, then escorted to a meeting room under heavy guard. Velmora was an older Zaldrian, his gray skin marked with age spots, his 4 eyes tired and worried. He sat down across from Paul and spoke without preamble. Commander Griffin, I have been authorized by the Zaldrian High Council to negotiate terms of peace. Paul leaned back in his chair. I'm listening. The High Council acknowledges that attacking Earth was a mistake. We had no idea your species was so formidable. We wish to avoid further bloodshed on both sides. That's a good start. What are you offering? Velmora pulled out a datapad. We propose a ceasefire. Your forces will leave our territory, and we will not approach Earth again. Both sides return to their previous borders. Paul shook his head. Not good enough. You don't get to invade someone, lose, and then just go back to how things were before. Then what do you want? Complete demilitarization of your invasion fleets, release of all conquered species, reparations to Earth for the attack, and inspections to ensure you comply. Velmora looked shocked. That would mean the end of our empire. That's the point, Paul said coldly. Your empire was built on conquest and fear. It ends now. The ambassador was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. If I bring these terms to the High Council, they will refuse. They will fight to the last ship rather than accept such humiliation. Paul leaned forward. Then your entire species will die. Because we won't stop. We'll destroy every military installation, every fleet base, every shipyard you have. And when you have no more ships, we'll blockade your worlds until you starve. You would commit genocide? We would do whatever it takes to protect our home. You started this war. We're going to finish it. Ambassador Vellamora returned to his ship looking like he had aged 10 years. The meeting with Commander Paul Griffin had shaken him deeply. For the first time in his long career, he understood what real power looked like. It wasn't the size of your fleet or the number of worlds you controlled. It was the willingness to do whatever was necessary to protect what mattered. The Zaldrian High Council received his report with a mixture of anger and fear. Some wanted to mobilize the entire Imperial fleet and crush these upstart humans. Others recognized that they were facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The debate raged for 3 days. Finally, Councillor Drexmore, the oldest and most respected member of the council, spoke. "We can continue this war and possibly win, but at what cost? The humans have already destroyed one of our fleets and captured a colony. They broadcast their victory across the galaxy. Our subject species are starting to rebel. If we fight them, even if we win, our empire will be fatally weakened. Other powers will see our struggle and attack us. So you suggest we surrender to these primitives?" another councillor demanded. "I suggest we negotiate," Drexmore replied, "but negotiate from a position of strength. We still have thousands of ships. We offer a compromise. We keep our empire but agree to leave human space alone. We pay some reparations but not crippling ones. We show we're reasonable but not weak." It was a sensible middle ground, and the council reluctantly agreed. Vellamora was sent back to Zeth Prime with new terms. This time, Admiral Lisa Grant had arrived from Earth to participate in the negotiations. She sat beside Paul as they listened to the Zaldrian proposals. "We offer a mutual non-aggression pact," Vellamora said. "The Empire will not approach human space. In return, humans will not attack our territory. We will pay reparations of 1 trillion credits over 10 years, and we will release 5 of the most recently conquered species if they wish to be independent." Lisa and Paul exchanged glances. It was better than the original offer, but still not enough. "Release all conquered species," Lisa said firmly. "Not just 5. All of them. Impossible. That would destroy the Empire." "Then maybe the Empire deserves to be destroyed," Paul said. "You built it by conquering peaceful species. Why should we let that continue?" Vellamora looked desperate. "Please be reasonable. We're offering you peace and compensation. Isn't that enough?" Jake Morrison's voice suddenly came through the communication system. He had been monitoring the negotiations from Earth. "Ambassador, let me explain something about humans. We spent thousands of years conquering each other on our planet. We know what it's like to be the conquered and the conqueror. Eventually, we learned that empires built on conquest always fall. Always. You can end yours peacefully or we can end it violently. Those are your only options." Vellamora was silent for a long moment. "Let me speak with my council again," he finally said. The ambassador left and Lisa turned to Paul. "Do you think they'll agree?" "They will. They're scared. They finally understand what they're facing." 2 days later, Vellamora returned with a final offer. The Zaldrian Empire would release all conquered species over a 5-year period. They would decommission half their military fleet. They would pay reparations to Earth and to the species they had conquered. And they would submit to inspections to ensure compliance. In exchange, humanity would not press further into Zaldrian territory and would help stabilize the region as the subject species gained independence. It wasn't perfect, but it was acceptable. Lisa agreed to the terms and the treaty was signed aboard the human flagship. News of the treaty spread across the galaxy within hours. The Zaldrian Empire, which had seemed invincible for a century, had been forced to negotiate peace by a single species from one planet. It was unthinkable. It was unprecedented. It changed everything. Captain Greg Palmer commanded the first human diplomatic mission to one of the newly freed species. The Karathi people welcomed him with tears of joy, celebrating their liberation after 40 years of Zaldrian occupation. "How can we thank you?" the Karathi leader asked Greg. "By building a good, peaceful society," Greg replied. "Don't become conquerors like the Zaldrians were. Learn from their mistakes." Back on Earth, the returning strike force was greeted as heroes. Parades filled the streets. Jake Morrison and Lisa Grant were promoted and awarded medals. Commander Paul Griffin became the first human to be named Admiral of Interstellar Operations. But amid the celebrations, the military leadership knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast and there would be other threats. Humanity needed to be ready. Lieutenant Amy Carter was assigned to the new diplomatic corps. Her mission was to make contact with other species, to build alliances, and to ensure that humanity would never again face a threat alone. She visited dozens of alien worlds over the next year, and everywhere she went, she heard the same thing. The other species were both fascinated and terrified by humans. They wanted to be humanity's friends, not their enemies. One species, the peaceful Talari, asked her why humans fought so fiercely. Amy thought about it for a moment, then smiled. Because we're from Earth. Our planet tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We survived because we refused to give up. We refused to quit, and we refused to accept defeat. When the Zaldrians threatened us, we showed them what that survival instinct looks like. We'll do the same to anyone who threatens us or our friends. The Talari ambassador nodded slowly. Then we wish to be your friends. Very much so. Alliances formed. Trade agreements were signed. Humanity began to build a network of relationships across the galaxy. Some species joined willingly. Others needed more convincing. But slowly, surely, a new order was emerging. Colonel Ryan Webb found himself in an unexpected position. Several alien species asked if he could train their military forces. They wanted to learn human tactics, human discipline, human resilience. At first, Ryan was reluctant. "Sir, if we teach them our methods, they might use them against us someday," he told Jake. Maybe, Jake agreed. But they're going to fight somehow. Better they learn from us and become allies than learn from someone else and become enemies. Besides, teaching them shows we trust them. That builds relationships. So Ryan became an instructor, traveling to alien worlds and showing their soldiers how humans trained, how they thought, how they fought. It was strange at first, but he grew to enjoy it. He was building bridges between species, one soldier at a time. 3 years after the war ended, Earth hosted the first Galactic Council meeting. Representatives from 30 species gathered to discuss trade, security, and cooperation. Humanity, as the species that had broken the Zaldrian Empire's reign of terror, was given a prominent position. Jake Morrison, now retired from active military service, gave the opening address. 3 years ago, we were alone in the galaxy and under attack. Today we stand here with friends and allies. We didn't seek this position. We didn't want to become warriors, but when we were threatened, we showed the galaxy what humans are capable of. Now we want to show you something else. Humans can also be peacemakers, builders, and friends. We hope all of you will join us in creating a galaxy where conquest is a thing of the past and cooperation is the future. The applause was thunderous. Species that had never agreed on anything before were united in their support for humanity's vision. As Jake left the stage, Lisa Grant met him with a smile. "Good speech, old friend. Think they'll actually follow through? Some will, some won't. But we've started something important here. Our children will finish it." 5 years had passed since the Zaldrian War ended. The galaxy looked very different now. The former Zaldrian Empire had fractured into independent systems, some peaceful, some struggling with internal conflicts. Humanity's reputation as both fierce warriors and fair diplomats had spread across hundreds of worlds. Captain Greg Palmer stood on the bridge of his new ship, the Horizon, returning from a survey mission near the galactic rim. His crew was tired but happy. They had just helped a colony of Karathi settlers establish a new home on a distant planet. "Sir, we're receiving a distress signal," his communications officer announced. "It's coming from the Ventari system about 6 light years from here." Greg checked the star charts. The Ventari were a peaceful species that had been freed from Zaldrian control. They had no military to speak of and relied on treaties and goodwill for protection. "What's the situation?" "They're under attack. Raiders of some kind. They're asking for help from anyone in the area." Greg didn't hesitate. "Set course for Ventari. Maximum speed. And send a message to Earth Defense Command. Let them know what's happening." The Horizon jumped to hyperspace, racing toward the distant system. When they dropped out near Ventari Prime, the situation was clear. 4 large warships of unknown design were bombarding the planet's orbital facilities. They were pirates or mercenaries, taking advantage of the chaos left behind by the Empire's collapse. "This is Captain Greg Palmer of Earth Defense Coalition to the attacking vessels. Cease fire immediately and withdraw or we will engage you." The response was mocking laughter. "One ship? You think one ship can stop us? Go away, human, before we destroy you too." Greg smiled coldly. "You were warned. Weapons, light them up." The Horizon might have been alone, but it was a human warship, built by people who understood that being outnumbered just meant you had to be smarter and faster. Greg's crew had trained for situations exactly like this. The first raider ship never saw the missiles coming until they hit. Its shields collapsed and a follow-up railgun barrage tore through its hull. The ship broke apart, spilling debris and bodies into space. The other 3 raiders suddenly realized they had made a terrible mistake. They tried to retreat, but the horizon was faster. Greg's tactical officer, Lieutenant Kevin Brooks, coordinated the attack with precision. One by one, the raider ships were crippled or destroyed. The last raider captain managed to broadcast a desperate message before his ship exploded. "What are you? How can one ship do this?" "We're human," Greg replied simply. "Remember that next time you think about attacking innocent people." When the battle was over, the Ventari government sent endless messages of gratitude. They offered trade deals, resources, even to name cities after Greg and his crew. He politely declined the cities but accepted the trade agreements on behalf of Earth. As the Horizon left the system, Kevin turned to Greg. "Sir, do you think word will spread about what happened here?" "It always does. Pirates talk. They'll tell others that attacking species under human protection is suicide. That's good. Means fewer fights in the future." Back on Earth, Jake Morrison heard about the incident and smiled. This was exactly what he had hoped for. Humanity wasn't trying to build an empire, but they were becoming the galaxy's protectors. It was a role that suited them. Admiral Lisa Grant had retired from military service and now led the Galactic Cooperation Initiative, an organization dedicated to helping former subject species build stable governments and economies. She traveled constantly, mediating disputes and preventing conflicts before they started. One day she received an unexpected visitor. Ambassador Velmora, the Zaldrian diplomat who had negotiated the peace treaty, requested a meeting. Lisa met him in her office, curious about what he wanted. "Admiral Grant," Velmora began, looking older and more tired than before. "I wanted to speak with you about the future." "What about it?" "The Zaldrian people have been struggling since the Empire ended. Our economy is weak. Many of our colonies are failing. Some of our people are starving." He paused. "We need help, but we don't deserve it. Not after what we did." Lisa studied him for a moment. "You're right. You don't deserve it. Your empire caused incredible suffering, but the people starving now weren't the ones who made those decisions. They're just trying to survive, same as anyone else. So you'll help us? On one condition. The Zaldrian government must publicly acknowledge the crimes of the Empire. Apologize to every species you conquered. Make reparations not just to Earth but to everyone you hurt. Do that and we'll help you rebuild." Velmora nodded slowly. "I will recommend this to the Council." "Thank you, Admiral." After he left, Lisa's assistant asked, "Do you think they'll actually do it?" "Yes, pride is a luxury of the powerful. The Zaldrians aren't powerful anymore. They're survivors now, and survivors do what they must." She was right. 3 months later, the Zaldrian High Council issued a formal apology and began making additional reparations. It was a painful process for them, admitting their mistakes so publicly. But it was necessary. With human help, the Zaldrian economy began to recover. Slowly, grudgingly, the former empire transformed into something new. A peaceful confederation focused on trade and cooperation rather than conquest. Meanwhile, Amy Carter had become one of humanity's most successful diplomats. She had a gift for understanding alien cultures and finding common ground between species that seemed to have nothing in common. Her greatest achievement came when she negotiated an alliance between 3 species that had been bitter enemies for centuries. The Karathi, the Talari, and the Mindar had fought countless wars over territorial disputes. Amy spent 6 months living among all 3 species, learning their histories, understanding their grievances. Finally, she brought their leaders together on a neutral station and showed them something surprising. Records from the Zaldrian archives proving that the Empire had deliberately caused most of their conflicts. The Zaldrians had used a classic divide-and-conquer strategy, making the 3 species fight each other so they wouldn't unite against the Empire. The revelation shocked all 3 species. Their ancient hatreds had been manufactured by a common enemy. Once they understood this, they began talking to each other for the first time in generations. 6 months later, the 3 species signed the Treaty of 3 Suns, ending their wars and establishing a mutual defense pact. They asked Amy to witness the signing as humanity's representative. "You've given us something we thought was lost forever," the Karathi ambassador told her. "Peace, thank you." Amy smiled. That's what humans do. We fight when we must, but we prefer peace when we can have it. Colonel Ryan Webb's training programs had expanded dramatically. He now oversaw military academies on 7 different worlds, teaching alien soldiers human tactics and philosophy. But he also learned from them, incorporating their knowledge and experiences into Earth's own military doctrine. One of his students, a young Talari officer named Kelrin, asked him a question that stayed with him. "Colonel, humans are so good at war. Doesn't that frighten you? What if your species turns that ability against innocent people?" Ryan thought about it carefully before answering. "It does frighten me. That's why we have rules, laws, and values. Being good at violence doesn't mean we have to use it carelessly. My job is to teach soldiers not just how to fight, but when to fight and when not to. The best warrior is one who wins without fighting at all." Kelrin nodded thoughtfully. "That's very wise." "I didn't come up with it," Ryan admitted. "It's an old human saying, thousands of years old. We've been thinking about these questions for a long time." As the years passed, humanity's influence grew, not through conquest or force, but through example and cooperation. Other species looked to Earth for leadership, for protection, for wisdom. Jake Morrison, now in his 60s, spent his retirement teaching at the Interstellar Academy. His classes were always full, with students from dozens of species eager to learn from the man who had defeated the Zaldrian Empire. One day, a young human cadet asked him the question he had been asked 1,000 times. "Sir, what was it like? Fighting the Zaldrians? Weren't you scared?" Jake smiled. "Terrified. Anyone who says they weren't afraid in battle is either lying or crazy. But being scared doesn't mean you stop fighting. It means you're smart enough to understand the danger." "How did you win, sir? We were so outnumbered." "We won because we understood something the Zaldrians didn't. War isn't just about ships and weapons. It's about will. The Zaldrians had more ships, but we had more reasons to fight. We were defending our home, our families, our future. They were just following orders from an empire that had never lost before. When things got hard, they broke." "We didn't." Another student, a Karathi, raised her hand. "Professor Morrison, do you think there will be more wars?" "Probably. As long as there are different species with different interests, there will be conflicts. But I hope most of them can be resolved peacefully. That's why we have diplomats like Ambassador Carter. That's why we have organizations like Admiral Grant's initiative. War should always be the last resort, not the first." The class ended and Jake walked slowly across the campus. The academy was built on Mars, with a beautiful view of the red landscape and the terraforming projects that were slowly making the planet habitable. He thought about how,